Hi everyone, and welcome to the first video for the Modeller's Hints and Tips Questions and Answers on Facebook page. I'm just going to produce some little 10 to 15 minute videos on just basic improving some skills, learning a few basic techniques, and overall helping out some of the younger modelers and maybe some of the older modelers. Of course, you get asked questions every day. It's very, very hard to explain on text on a forum how to go about things. So I decided to get this little page going and some video, just techniques. So without any further ado, my name's Matt. You've probably seen me, I'm the creator of the page on Facebook. You've probably seen me comment on a few things. Trying to keep things running fairly smoothly on there, but as always sometimes there's some dramas and melancholies. But I predominantly build 1/72 scale aircraft, and a lot of my aircraft are old toolings from a few years ago that I've bought over the years. And I've always been worried about, I've got to put etch this, that, resin, that. Well, I've made up my mind now that things can be built, and they can be built well without the aid of any really aftermarket accessories for your aircraft. Nothing against aftermarket accessories, but it's just a cost, and a lot of the aftermarket accessories are absolutely beautiful. The companies that produce them is a credit. There's some superb models being built with them, without a doubt, but not your everyday Joe Blow wants to go that far. I don't hold against anyone who does want to go full hog with all their aftermarket bits and pieces, but these sort of videos we're going to do is just going to concentrate on just basic model building. But anyway, subject, I got a message the other day. A couple of young fellas been building kits. Older kits have fit issue. How do we fill a big gap? They've been smearing in filler of all sorts of filler, and they're just generally not getting a good result. They're very disappointed in it. So the first of these little videos, we're going to be working on this little Hasegawa Kawasaki T4 trainer, and I was done a bit of construction and noticed that it's got some gaps in it. So as you can see, it's got a fairly big gap there, tiny little gap there. We've got some fit issues under the wings and around the jet exhaust systems, which was pretty bad. Another one up in the front of the fuselage. Now what people can do, and I have seen them do, is yes, you can bang this area here full of putty. It's not going to work too well. The putty's going to keep sinking. You're going to have to keep sanding it, and in the end you're going to lose some of this beautiful, really fine recessed detail. And to try to fill an area with that with like normal Humbrol or Squadron putty can be a little bit daunting, as well as excess sanding can destroy some of your detail. So the next video after this one, we will be working out ways where we can fill these gaps without copious amounts of putty. The other thing I do like using to fill gaps in cracks and big seams like this is actually to use plastic itself. There's nothing bonds better than plastic. Super glue is good. I will be using super glue in this demonstration. I will be using some fine styrene strip. If you haven't got styrene strip, then we'll be working ways where we can shape leftover stretch spew, which I've just used another colour here just to add a bit of contrast later on. How we can use this to help fill these gaps in and get a good result. The basic tools that we'll be using in the in that example is sharp hobby knife, super glue, cheap brand. Don't have to buy a $7, $9, $12 bottle of CA. That's a 50 cent tube of normal super glue. And just for example, it's just some Humbrol poly cement. We'll be using that. I'll put it around the right way. I haven't got any Tamiya extra thin at the moment. I do like using this as well. If you want to purchase it or use it before, most microscale stuff, it's very thin, it flows into gaps quite well. I apply it using an old paintbrush, fine tip paintbrush. This is not Tamiya extra thin in here. This is actually, I've kept the jar, and this has got Humbrol paint in it, Humbrol poly cement, which I just used the old Tamiya bottle to store it in. I find a lot better to put it on with a brush than try to get it out of the tube. Usually goes everywhere, but we'll be using that. Just a quick thing before we go to the next video. Some basic tools we want to sort of go across. One most important thing that I find that I've noticed that people use, you've got to have a good hobby knife. Now, this is an XL one. I've had it for 20 years. Aluminium construction. The knife holder part itself is aluminium. I've seen some cheap ones out there being used. This part is plastic. If you put too much pressure on that part, it will break. You will hurt yourself. Okay. Pair of side cutters. Now, I've had this old pair of Tamiya side cutters for years and years and years. It cost me a little bit of money to start with. These are excellent. Very fine point. You can get into the sprue gates round parts very easily, especially on small parts, but also you get a nice flush cut when we will need it later on, when we've got to cut some of these bits and pieces. Basic sanding stick. Look, I just use these are out of from a chemist, like nail files and things like that. Excellent, come in handy. You will need some wet and dry. I like to wet sand a lot of my products. One, it keeps the dust down. You're not breathing in dust particles, and two, it just seems to get a better finish with wet and dry. But we'll explain more of that in the next video. Now, the next thing is your choice of filler. Now, I use Perfect plastic putty. It's hard to find here in Tassie. A couple of places I can get it. I got this from England. It has to be one of the best, easy to use, quick drying, no mess putty that I've had the pleasure to use. So we'll be using some of that, but also I will be using another product. Just let me find it. I also we'll try some Squadron White for people who can get the Squadron White putty, and we will be using plain Jane old, non-expensive, non-Tamiya masking tape. This is just bare tape. Look, it's filthy. I just use it. This will be used to cut into strips, and what we'll be doing, we'll be laying the tape in between here and here before we start working on it and sanding and adding filler, so we protect our panel lines and we don't make too much damage to the kit. Finally, to redo some of those panel lines that have been damaged, we will be scribing panel lines back in. I got a little RB photo etch. Cost me like $5, and you fold this back up with very basic tools. This is a very good little scribing tool. Just goes into a hobby knife. It allows for a nice bit of control. We'll be using that to run the panel lines back in, and also I have a selection of sewing needles which we will be running in a pin vise. Now if you haven't got a pin vise or a scribing tool, we will later on, I'll show you how to make yourself a little scribing tool with using a pin, of course, and we'll make like a little wooden handle for it that we'll just super glue that into. Most of the time, if I want to make a handle out of it, I will actually find an old broken paintbrush, and usually I won't be doing it. This one's my old pastel brush, but I usually just cut this off through here very, very carefully. Then we'll bore a tiny little hole in there, and then we'll glue the pin in. It won't be very long. There'll be probably about say 10 millimeters of pin tip. We don't want too much pin hanging up, the risk of snapping it, and plus it flexes around a bit. So that's what we'll be doing in the next video. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please feel free to comment, ask any questions. You want something explained, I'll do my best to explain it, or I could put you onto some other YouTube channels out there that are very, very good. And the most important thing is stay safe, model hard, and until next time, we will catch you. Might be a little while between that, but I'll be working straight away on getting the video done.